The sound of expensive wheels rolling across marble floors echoed through the empty office building. At 11:47 p.m., Scarlett Hayes sat frozen in her wheelchair, staring at the janitor who had just said the most impossible thing she'd heard in 5 years. "I'll help you walk," he repeated softly, his mop still dripping onto the pristine floor. Scarlett's laugh started as a whisper, then grew louder and more bitter. "Walk?" She threw her head back, her perfectly styled blonde hair catching the moonlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Walk?" The laughter turned harsh, almost crazy. Here was this nobody, this cleaning man in his worn uniform, telling her, Scarlett Hayes, CEO of Hayes Industries, worth $2.3 billion, that he could do what the world's best doctors couldn't. But then something shifted in her eyes. The laughter cracked, her face crumpled, and for the first time in 5 years, tears rolled down the cheeks of the most powerful woman in the city. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. 2 weeks earlier, the elevator in Hayes Tower climbed to the 47th floor every morning at exactly 8:15 a.m. Inside, Scarlett Hayes reviewed her schedule on her tablet, her manicured fingers scrolling through meetings that would decide the fate of thousands of jobs and millions of dollars. She had built this empire from nothing. At 34, she was the youngest female billionaire in the country. Her face graced magazine covers. Her business moves were studied in universities. But for the past 5 years, she had done it all from a wheelchair. The accident had happened on a Tuesday. At least, that's what everyone called it. The accident. Scarlett never talked about that day. Not to the doctors, not to the lawyers, not even to herself. All anyone knew was that she had fallen down the stairs in her penthouse. When she woke up in the hospital, her legs wouldn't move. Medically, there's nothing wrong, doctor. Richardson had explained to her husband David that first week. Her spine is intact. Her nerves are fine. This appears to be psychological. David had stood at the foot of her hospital bed, his face a mask of concern that didn't quite reach his eyes. So she's faking it? Not faking, the doctor corrected. Her mind is protecting her from something. Until she's ready to face whatever that is, her body won't cooperate. That was 5 years ago. David was long gone now. Divorced her after 2 years of what he called this disability phase. The doctors had given up. Physical therapists had thrown in the towel. Everyone had accepted that Scarlett Hayes would spend the rest of her life in wheels. Everyone except the night janitor on the 47th floor. Nathan Cross had been cleaning office buildings for 12 years. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid the bills and let him be home during the day with his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. His wife Sarah had died 3 years ago, leaving him to raise their daughter alone. But Nathan had a secret that none of his supervisors knew about. Before Sarah died, before he became a single father working odd hours, he had been a physical therapist. He'd helped dozens of people walk again. He understood bodies, minds, and the mysterious connection between them. Sarah herself had been paralyzed for 6 months after a car accident. The doctors said she'd never walk again. But Nathan had worked with her every single day, not just exercising her muscles, but talking to her fears, her anger, her guilt about the accident. When she finally took her first step, she cried for an hour. Sometimes, she had told him that day, our bodies stop working because our hearts are too broken to try. Now, 3 years after losing her, Nathan found himself working the night shift at Hayes Tower. He'd applied for the job because it paid better than day work, and Lily was old enough to stay with their neighbor Mrs. Chen until morning. For 2 weeks, he'd been cleaning the 47th floor, Scarlett's floor. And for 2 weeks, he'd watched her. She stayed late every night, long after her assistants and executives had gone home. She'd sit in her office with the lights dimmed, staring out at the city below. Sometimes she'd take calls that made her voice rise with anger. Other times, she'd just sit in the darkness, so still that Nathan wondered if she was even breathing. He recognized the signs, the way she held her shoulders, the careful mask she wore during the day that slipped when she thought no one was looking, the way she flinched when anyone touched her wheelchair. Sarah had looked exactly the same way. It was a Thursday night when Nathan first spoke to her. He'd been mopping the hallway outside her office when he heard a crash. Through the glass walls, he saw Scarlett slumped forward in her chair, papers scattered across the floor where she'd swept them off her desk. She was crying, not the dignified tears of a CEO having a difficult day, but the raw, ugly sobs of someone who had been holding everything together for too long. Nathan knocked gently on the doorframe. "Ms. Hayes, are you okay?" She looked up, quickly wiping her face. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled. For a moment, she looked like a scared little girl instead of a billionaire. "I'm fine," she said, her voice shaky. "Just tired." Nathan stepped into the office, picked up the papers, and placed them neatly on her desk. "My wife used to cry like that," he said quietly. Scarlett stared at him. "Excuse me?" She was paralyzed for a while. Car accident. The crying helped eventually. "I'm not," Scarlett started, then stopped. "Your wife was paralyzed?" 6 months. Doctor said she'd never walk again." Nathan finished cleaning up the papers and straightened up. They were wrong. Something flickered in Scarlett's eyes. Hope, maybe, or just curiosity. What happened to her? She got better. Took time, but she walked again, ran again, danced at our daughter's school play. Nathan's voice grew soft. Cancer got her 3 years ago, but she died on her own 2 feet. Scarlett was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you." Nathan picked up his mop bucket. "I should let you get back to work." "Wait." Scarlett's voice stopped him at the door. "What? What made her walk again?" Nathan turned back to her. She had to forgive herself first. Over the next week, their conversations grew longer. Nathan would finish his cleaning route and find Scarlett still in her office. They talked about everything except her paralysis, his daughter Lily's soccer games, Scarlett's childhood in foster care, the way the city looked different at 2 a.m. Scarlett learned that Nathan had a master's degree in physical therapy, that he'd given up his practice to care for his wife during her illness, that he worked nights now so he could walk Lily to school every morning and help with her homework every afternoon. "You could go back to therapy work," Scarlett said one night. "I could make some calls. You're obviously overqualified for this." Nathan smiled. "This pays better than you'd think. And I like working alone. Less complicated." "Don't you miss it? Helping people?" Nathan looked at her carefully. "I help people every day, just differently now." It was on a Friday night that Scarlett finally asked the question that had been building between them. "Do you think I'm faking it?" Nathan was cleaning the windows behind her desk. He didn't stop working. "Are you?" "Everyone thinks I am. My ex-husband. The board members who whisper when they think I can't hear. Even my own mother." Scarlett's voice was bitter. "They think I'm using this wheelchair to make people feel sorry for me." "Are you?" "No!" The word exploded out of her. "God, no! I would give anything to walk again. Anything!" Nathan set down his cleaning supplies and walked around to face her. "Then why can't you?" Scarlett's hands gripped the arms of her wheelchair. "I don't know." "Yes, you do. The doctors ran every test. I'm not talking about doctors." Nathan knelt down so he was at eye level with her. "I'm talking about what happened that night. What you won't tell anyone." Scarlett's face went white. "I fell down the stairs." People fall downstairs every day. They break bones, they get bruises, they get back up. You ... Nathan's voice was gentle but persistent. "You didn't just fall, did you?" For a moment, Scarlett looked like she might answer. Her mouth opened, her eyes filled with something that might have been truth. But then the mask slammed back down. "I think you should finish your cleaning," she said coldly. Nathan stood up. My wife kept secrets too. Nearly killed her before the accident did. I'm not your wife. No, Nathan agreed. But you're dying the same way she almost did. Just slower. The weekend passed without incident. Monday night, Scarlett wasn't in her office. Tuesday, the same. Nathan began to think he'd pushed too hard, that she was avoiding him. But Wednesday night, she was there, waiting. Tell me about your wife's secrets, she said without preamble. Nathan sat down in the chair across from her desk, the first time he'd ever sat in her presence. She was driving the night of the accident, had been drinking, not drunk, but enough. She hit a family of 4. Scarlett's eyes widened. They all lived, Nathan continued. Bumps and bruises, but Sarah couldn't forgive herself. She kept thinking, what if? What if I'd killed them? What if there had been children? The guilt ate at her until her body just stopped. How did you help her? I made her face it. The guilt, the shame, the fear. We went to see the family she'd hit. She apologized. She got help for her drinking. She forgave herself. Nathan leaned forward. Only then could she walk. Scarlett was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. What if the thing you need to forgive yourself for is unforgivable? There's no such thing. You don't know what I did. Then tell me. Scarlett's hands shook as she reached for a water bottle on her desk. She took a long sip, buying time. My ex-husband David, he was having an affair. Nathan waited. With my business partner, my best friend since college, Rachel. Scarlett's voice grew stronger, angrier. They thought I didn't know. They were so careful, so sneaky. Meeting in hotels, covering for each other in meetings. That must have been devastating. I hired a private investigator. Got photos, hotel receipts, everything. I was going to destroy them both. Divorce David and take half of everything he had. Fire Rachel and make sure she never worked in this industry again. Scarlett's eyes were bright with tears. I had it all planned out. What stopped you? The night before I was going to confront them, David came home early. He found me in my office looking at the photos. We fought. He said terrible things. I said worse. Scarlett's voice broke. He told me I was cold, heartless, that no one could ever really love me because I didn't know how to love back. Nathan could see where this was going, but he didn't interrupt. I was so angry. I followed him upstairs screaming. I wanted to hurt him the way he'd hurt me. When we got to the top of the stairs, She stopped, gasping for air. What did you do, Scarlett? I pushed him. The words hung in the air between them like a physical thing. I pushed him down the stairs, my own husband. I wanted him to fall, to get hurt, to feel what I was feeling. Tears streamed down her face. But at the last second, I grabbed for him, to stop him from falling, and I lost my balance and... You fell instead. I fell instead. Scarlett was sobbing now. I tried to save him after I tried to hurt him, and my body remembers both things. It remembers wanting to hurt someone I loved, and it remembers trying to save them. It can't decide which person I really am. Nathan reached across the desk and took her hands. You're both people. That's what makes you human. I'm a monster. You're a woman who was betrayed and angry and made a mistake. A woman who tried to fix that mistake, even at her own cost. I could have killed him, but you didn't. You saved him instead. By accident. No. Nathan's voice was firm. Not by accident, by choice. At the moment when it mattered most, you chose love over hate. You chose to save him instead of hurt him. Scarlett pulled her hands away. That doesn't change what I intended to do. No, it doesn't. But it shows who you really are when everything else is stripped away. They sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Scarlett spoke again. David never knew. I never told him what really happened. He thinks I just fell. And he left you anyway. He left because he couldn't handle being married to someone in a wheelchair. Not because of guilt or shame. Just inconvenience. Scarlett laughed bitterly. I tried to save our marriage by not telling him the truth, and he left me anyway. What about Rachel? She sent a sympathy card when I was in the hospital. Never visited. Started her own company 6 months later with half my client list. Scarlett shook her head. They're married now. Have been for 2 years. Nathan was quiet, processing everything she'd told him. Finally, he said, "Stand up." What? Stand up. Right now. Scarlett stared at him. I can't. Yes, you can. Your legs work. Your spine is fine. The only thing keeping you in that chair is guilt over something you didn't even do. I tried to push him, and then you tried to save him. That's who you are, Scarlett. Not the woman who wanted revenge. The woman who chose love. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Nathan stood up and walked around the desk. I understand that you've been punishing yourself for 5 years for a crime you didn't commit against a man who didn't deserve your sacrifice. He held out his hand to her. I'll help you walk, he said quietly. And that's when Scarlett laughed. The bitter, broken laugh of a woman who had heard those words too many times from too many people. The laugh that said she'd given up hope long ago. But then she looked into Nathan's eyes. Really looked. And she saw something she hadn't seen in 5 years. She saw someone who believed in her. The laughter died in her throat. Her face crumpled. And for the first time since the night she fell, Scarlett Hayes let herself cry for something other than self-pity. She cried for the woman she used to be, for the marriage she'd lost, for the friend who'd betrayed her, for the years she'd spent trapped in wheels of her own making. And slowly, trembling, she reached out and took Nathan's hand. I'm scared, she whispered. I know, he said, but I'll be right here. Scarlett gripped his hand tighter, took a deep breath, and for the first time in 5 years, she tried to stand. Her legs shook, her knees buckled. She collapsed back into the wheelchair, gasping. But for just a moment, just one impossible moment, she had felt her feet touch the ground. The security guard found them at 3:17 a.m. Scarlett was on the floor of her office, Nathan kneeling beside her, both of them crying. Her wheelchair sat empty 3 feet away, the first time in 5 years it had been empty while she was conscious. Ma'am? Is everything all right? The guard's hand moved instinctively toward his radio. Everything's fine, Marcus, Scarlett said, her voice shaky but determined. She was sitting on the carpet, her legs stretched out in front of her like a child learning to sit up. This is Nathan. He's helping me. Marcus looked confused but nodded. He'd worked security at Hayes Tower for 8 years. He'd never seen Ms. Hayes out of her wheelchair. He'd also never seen her smile the way she was smiling now, like someone who'd just discovered fire. After Marcus left, Nathan helped Scarlett back into her chair. But something had changed. The chair felt different now. Foreign, like clothes that no longer fit quite right. That was real, wasn't it? She whispered. I actually stood up. For about 10 seconds, Nathan confirmed. Your legs held your weight. They remembered how. Scarlett touched her thighs, pressing her palms against muscles that had been silent for so long. I felt them. I actually felt them working. The connection was never broken, Nathan explained. Your mind just convinced your body it was safer to stay still. But now that you've faced the truth that I'm a terrible person who tried to hurt someone, the truth that you're a human being who made a mistake and chose love over revenge when it mattered most. Over the next week, Nathan began coming to work an hour early. He'd arrive at 10 p.m. instead of 11, and he'd spend that first hour working with Scarlett. Not physical therapy, exactly. More like trust exercises. Close your eyes, he said on the first night. I'm going to move your legs, and I want you to tell me what you feel. Scarlett hesitated. What if I don't feel anything? Then we'll try again tomorrow. Nathan lifted her right leg, bent it at the knee, straightened it again. Anything? Scarlett's eyes flew open, tingling, like when your foot falls asleep and starts to wake up. Good. That's very good. They did this every night. Simple movements, basic stretches, Nathan's hands guiding her legs through motions they'd forgotten how to make. And slowly, so slowly that Scarlett almost didn't notice at first, the tingling became warmth. The warmth became sensation. The sensation became possibility. But the real breakthrough came on a Tuesday night, exactly 2 weeks after Scarlett had first told Nathan her secret. She was working late again, but this time she wasn't hiding. She was on a video call with investors in Tokyo, negotiating a deal that would create 5,000 new jobs. Nathan was cleaning the conference room next door, but he could hear her through the glass walls. "Gentlemen, I understand your concerns about market volatility," she was saying, her voice clear and commanding. "But I didn't build a billion-dollar company by playing it safe." This was the Scarlett the world knew. Brilliant, fearless, unstoppable. Nathan had glimpsed her in their late-night conversations, but seeing her in action was something else entirely. The call ended successfully. Scarlett rolled into the hallway where Nathan was working. 5,000 jobs, she said, her eyes bright with satisfaction. 5,000 families who'll have steady income because we took a risk. "Congratulations," Nathan said. "You look alive." "I feel alive. For the first time in years, I feel like myself again." She paused. "Well, part of myself. Which part is missing?" Scarlett looked down at her legs. "The part that could walk away from this chair and mean it." Nathan set down his mop. "Are you ready to try?" "Try what?" "Walking. Really walking. Not just standing for 10 seconds, but taking actual steps." Fear flickered across Scarlett's face. "What if I fall?" "Then I'll catch you." "What if I can't do it?" "Then we'll try again tomorrow." "What if—" "Scarlett." Nathan's voice was gentle but firm. "What if you can?" They cleared a space in the conference room. Nathan moved all the chairs against the walls, creating an open area about 20 feet long. He positioned Scarlett's wheelchair at one end. "The goal isn't to walk across the room," he explained. "The goal is to take one step, just one. Can you do that?" Scarlett gripped the arms of her wheelchair. "I don't know." "Yes, you do. Your body knows how to walk. You've been walking for 34 years. Your muscles remember, your bones remember, your brain just needs to trust them again." Nathan knelt in front of her chair. "Tell me what you're afraid of." "Falling." "What else?" "Failing, looking stupid, being weak." "What else?" Scarlett was quiet for a long moment. "Succeeding," she finally whispered. "Why does that scare you?" "Because if I can walk, then I could have walked this whole time. All these years, all the pity, all the limitations I've accepted. It would all be my choice. My fault." Nathan nodded. "And that terrifies you?" "Yes." "Good. Fear means you're about to do something important." Nathan stood and offered her his hands. "Are you ready to be terrified?" Scarlett looked at his hands for a long time. Then she looked at the empty space in front of her. Then she looked back at Nathan. "Will you tell me about Lily?" she asked suddenly. Nathan blinked. "My daughter?" "Yes. Tell me about her while I try this." Nathan smiled. He understood. She needed something beautiful to focus on, something that had nothing to do with fear or failure or the weight of 5 years in a wheelchair. "Lily has your determination," he said, taking her hands and gently pulling her forward. "When she decides she wants something, she doesn't give up." Scarlett's feet touched the floor. She was standing, but all her weight was on Nathan's hands. Last month, she decided she wanted to learn to play guitar. She saved up her allowance for 3 weeks to buy a cheap one from a pawn shop. Nathan slowly, carefully, began to release some of her weight. Scarlett's legs trembled, but they held. Her fingers were too small for most of the chords. She couldn't reach the frets properly, but she practiced every single day after school. Scarlett was standing now, mostly on her own. Nathan's hands were still there, ready to catch her, but she was supporting herself. "And?" she asked, her voice tight with concentration. 2 weeks ago, she played Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star all the way through without making a mistake. Nathan's voice was warm with pride. She cried when she finished, happy tears. "Like mine," Scarlett whispered. "Like yours." Nathan took a small step backward, his hands still extended toward her. "Now, I want you to come to me. 1 step. Just lift your right foot and put it down in front of you." Scarlett stared at the small gap between them. It might as well have been the Grand Canyon. "I can't. I can't." "You already are. You're standing. You're balancing. You're doing everything except moving forward." "What if... Scarlett, do you trust me?" She looked into his eyes. This man who cleaned floors for a living but had a master's degree, who had lost his wife but still believed in love, who saw her not as a billionaire or a disability, but as a person worth saving. "Yes," she said, "I trust you." "Then take 1 step." Scarlett lifted her right foot. For a moment, she balanced on her left leg, wobbling slightly. Nathan held perfectly still, letting her find her own balance. Then she put her foot down in front of her. 1 step, the first step she'd taken in 5 years. Scarlett gasped, her eyes wide with shock and wonder. "I did it! Oh my God, I actually did it!" "Again," Nathan said, taking another small step backward. This time, she didn't hesitate. Left foot forward, then right, then left again. She was walking, slowly, carefully, with Nathan's hands ready to catch her at every step. But she was walking. By the time she reached him, they were both crying again. But these weren't tears of pain or grief or guilt. These were tears of joy, of triumph, of a woman who had just reclaimed a piece of herself she thought was lost forever. Nathan caught her in his arms as her legs finally gave out, both of them sinking to the floor in a tangle of limbs and laughter. "I walked," she said, her voice full of amazement. "I actually walked." "You did? How many steps was that?" 7. 7 steps. Scarlett laughed, the sound bright and clear. 7 steps, and I feel like I just climbed Mount Everest. They sat on the conference room floor for a long time, neither of them wanting to break the spell of the moment. Finally, Scarlett spoke. "Natan? Yeah? Why did you help me? Really? You could have just done your job, collected your paycheck, gone home to Lily? Why did you care what happened to some bitter woman in a wheelchair?" Nathan considered the question. "Do you remember what you said to me the first night we really talked? When I told you I could make some calls, help me get back into physical therapy? I said you were overqualified for cleaning. You said I could help people again. You saw potential in me that I'd forgotten I had." Nathan smiled. "I guess I just returned the favor." "It's more than that, though, isn't it?" Nathan was quiet for a moment. "My wife, after she could walk again, she used to say that everyone has a moment when they choose who they want to be. Most people never get a second chance at that moment. But you did. Tonight. And who did I choose to be? Someone who doesn't give up. Someone who trusts. Someone who's willing to be afraid if it means being alive." Scarlett reached for her wheelchair, but Nathan stopped her. "What are you doing?" "Getting back in my chair." "Why?" The question caught her off guard. Because that's what I do. That's who I am." "Is it? After what just happened?" Scarlett looked at the wheelchair, then at her legs, then at Nathan. "I don't know how to be anyone else." "Then learn. Starting right now." Nathan stood up and offered her his hand. Let's walk to your office. That's like 50 feet. So? I just took 7 steps. 7. 50 feet is impossible. 7 steps 7 times, plus a few extra. Scarlett stared at his outstretched hand. Everything in her wanted to get back in the wheelchair. It was safe, familiar, expected. But for the first time in 5 years, she wanted something more than she wanted to be safe. She took his hand. It took them 20 minutes to walk 50 feet. Scarlett had to stop and rest every few steps, leaning against the wall or holding onto Nathan's arm. Her legs shook with effort. Her breathing was labored. By the time they reached her office, she was exhausted, but she was walking. I need to sit down, she gasped, collapsing into the chair behind her desk. Not the wheelchair? Scarlett looked over at her wheelchair, which Nathan had pushed along beside them during their slow journey. No, she said, surprise in her voice. Not the wheelchair. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the weight of what had just happened settling between them. Finally, Nathan spoke. What happens now? I don't know. Scarlett's voice was thoughtful. I guess I learn how to walk properly again. Physical therapy, strengthening exercises. It's going to take months to get back to normal. I meant with everything else. Your company, your life, the story you've been telling yourself for 5 years. Scarlett leaned back in her chair, considering. I guess I tell a different story now. What story is that? The story of a woman who made a terrible mistake, lost herself for a while, and then found her way back. Scarlett smiled. With a little help from a janitor who saw her better than she saw herself. Nathan stood up. I should let you get some rest, and I should finish my route before the day shift comes in. Nathan? He turned back to her. Tomorrow night, will you help me walk to the elevator? That's twice as far as tonight. I know. Nathan smiled. I'll be here. After he left, Scarlett sat alone in her office, looking out at the city below. For the first time in 5 years, she wasn't thinking about what she'd lost. She was thinking about what she'd found. Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from her assistant. Board meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. Do you need me to confirm wheelchair accessibility for the new conference room? Scarlett stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, No, I think I'll be fine. She sent the message, then looked over at her wheelchair one more time. Thank you, she said softly. You kept me safe when I needed to be safe. But I don't need you anymore. As if in response, the first rays of dawn began to creep through her office windows. A new day was beginning, and for the first time in 5 years, Scarlett Hayes was ready to meet it, standing up. 6 months later. The Hayes Industries annual shareholders meeting was always held in the company's largest auditorium. This year, it was packed beyond capacity, with reporters lining the walls and cameras positioned at every angle. The reason wasn't the quarterly earnings report or the announcement of new international expansion. The reason was the rumor that had been circulating for weeks. Scarlett Hayes was going to walk onto the stage. Backstage, Scarlett stood in front of a full-length mirror, adjusting her navy blue suit. She'd had to have all her clothes altered. Sitting in a wheelchair for 5 years had changed her posture, her muscle tone, the way fabric fell on her body. Learning to dress for a standing body had been almost as challenging as learning to walk again. 5 minutes, Ms. Hayes, her assistant called. Thank you, Patricia. Nathan appeared beside her in the mirror. He was wearing a suit, too, his first day as Hayes Industries' new director of employee wellness, a position Scarlett had created specifically for him. How are you feeling? He asked. Terrified, Scarlett admitted. What if I trip? What if my legs give out in front of 2,000 people and every camera in the business world? Then you get up and try again, just like you've been doing for 6 months. Scarlett had indeed been getting up and trying again for 6 months. Some days were better than others. She'd fallen more times than she could count, cried out of frustration and exhaustion, wanted to give up and return to the safety of wheels. But every night, Nathan was there. Sometimes they worked on physical therapy, sometimes they just talked. And slowly, step by step, she had rebuilt not just her ability to walk, but her ability to trust herself. Lily wanted to be here today, Nathan said, but she has a school recital. She's playing guitar, right? Piano now. She mastered guitar and moved on to something harder. Scarlett smiled. She gets that from her father. 2 minutes, Ms. Hayes. Scarlett took a deep breath. I guess this is it. You don't have to do this, Nathan said quietly. No one expects you to walk out there. You could use the wheelchair one more time, and no one would think less of you. I would think less of me. Scarlett straightened her shoulders. Besides, I have something I need to say to those people, and I need to say it standing up. The auditorium fell silent as the lights dimmed. A spotlight illuminated the center of the stage, where a podium waited. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. Please welcome the CEO of Hayes Industries, Scarlett Hayes. The side curtain parted, and Scarlett Hayes walked onto the stage. The auditorium erupted. 2,000 people rose to their feet, applauding not just for the CEO they respected, but for the woman who had just accomplished the impossible. Cameras flashed like lightning. Several people were openly crying. Scarlett walked slowly but steadily to the podium, her heels clicking against the wooden stage floor, a sound she'd dreamed about for 5 years. When she reached the microphone, she gripped the sides of the podium and looked out at the crowd. Thank you, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the sound system. Please, sit down. The applause continued for a full minute before the crowd finally settled. I know you're all wondering about this, Scarlett said, gesturing to her own standing form. The rumors are true. 6 months ago, I took my first steps in 5 years. Today, I walked out here on my own 2 feet. More applause, which she gently waved down. But I didn't walk out here to inspire you, or to prove anything to the medical community, or to make headlines. I walked out here because I have something to tell you about failure, and about the people who help us turn failure into something else. Scarlett's eyes found Nathan in the wings, watching with pride and encouragement. 5 years ago, I made a choice that I thought defined me as a person, a choice I was so ashamed of that I buried it so deep inside myself that my own body shut down rather than face it. For 5 years, I let that shame keep me in a wheelchair, not because I had to be there, but because I believed I deserved to be there. The auditorium was completely silent now. 6 months ago, a night janitor in this building looked at me and saw something I couldn't see in myself. He saw someone worth saving, and slowly, patiently, he taught me the most important lesson of my life. We are not defined by our worst moments. We are defined by what we choose to do after them. Scarlett paused, gathering her courage for what came next. That janitor is now our Director of Employee Wellness. His name is Nathan Cross, and I would not be standing here today without him. Nathan, will you join me? Nathan walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. When he reached Scarlett, she stepped away from the podium and, in front of 2,000 people and dozens of cameras, hugged the man who had given her back her life. This company has always been about building things, Scarlett said, returning to the microphone. Buildings, infrastructure, communities. But today, I want to announce a new initiative. We're going to start building something else. Hope. She went on to announce the Scarlett Hayes Foundation for Psychological Recovery, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping people whose bodies had shut down due to trauma, guilt, or fear. Nathan would run the foundation, using his skills as a physical therapist and his understanding of the connection between mind and body. We're going to help people learn to walk again, Scarlett concluded. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. We're going to help them discover that no matter how far they've fallen, they can always take one more step forward. The standing ovation lasted for 10 minutes. Afterward, as the auditorium emptied and the cameras were packed away, Scarlett and Nathan stood alone on the stage. "So," Nathan said, "how does it feel to be a medical miracle?" "I'm not a medical miracle," Scarlett replied. "I'm just someone who finally learned to forgive herself." "And now?" Scarlett looked out at the empty auditorium, then down at her own 2 feet, steady and strong beneath her. "Now I help other people learn the same thing." She took Nathan's arm, and together, they walked off the stage and into whatever came next. 1 year later, the Scarlett Hayes Foundation had helped 43 people learn to walk again. Not all of them had been in wheelchairs. Some had been paralyzed by fear, by depression, by trauma that manifested in different ways. But all of them had been stuck, trapped by something inside themselves that told them they couldn't move forward. And all of them had learned to take that first, terrifying, beautiful step. Scarlett still walked every single day, to work, through the park near her apartment, up and down the stairs of Hayes Tower, just because she could. She'd completed 2 5K races and was training for her first marathon. But the most important walk she took was every Thursday evening, when she would walk 3 blocks from her office to Nathan and Lily's apartment building, carrying takeout dinner and homework help and the kind of friendship that only comes from saving each other's lives. Today was Thursday. Scarlett climbed the 2 flights of stairs to apartment 3B and knocked on the door. "Scarlett!" Lily threw the door open and hugged her around the waist. At 9 years old, she was getting tall enough that the hugs were becoming more awkward, but neither of them cared. "Hey, kiddo, how was school?" "Boring, but I finished my math homework, and I've been practicing the song you asked me to learn." The song was "Walking on Sunshine," Lily's idea of a joke that had become a Thursday tradition. Nathan appeared in the doorway, smiling. "Chinese food?" "Thai tonight. I was feeling adventurous." They ate dinner around Nathan's small kitchen table, Lily chattering about school and friends and her latest obsession with marine biology. After dinner, she played her song on the piano that Scarlett had bought her for her birthday. When Lily went to her room to read before bed, Nathan and Scarlett sat on the couch, comfortable in the quiet evening routine they'd developed. "The foundation got another application today," Nathan said. "A veteran from Iraq. Lost the use of his legs in an IED explosion, but all the doctors say there's no physical reason he can't walk." "Psychological?" "Survivor's guilt. 3 of his buddies died in the same explosion." Scarlett nodded. She understood survivor's guilt now. The weight of being the one who made it out when others didn't. The way the mind could create prison walls stronger than any physical barrier. "When does he want to start?" "Next week, if we can fit him in. We'll make room." They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the sun set through Nathan's living room window. Finally, Scarlett spoke. "Nathan? Yeah? Do you think we're saving people or are they saving us?" Nathan considered the question. "Does it matter?" "I guess not." Scarlett smiled. "I just know that every time I help someone take their first step, I remember why mine was so important." "And why was it so important?" Scarlett stood up from the couch and walked to the window, her movement so natural now that it was hard to remember a time when it had been impossible. "Because it wasn't really about walking," she said, looking out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the growing darkness. "It was about believing I deserved to move forward, believing I was worth saving, believing that my worst moment didn't have to be my last moment." Nathan joined her at the window. "And now?" "Now I help other people believe the same thing about themselves." Outside, the city hummed with life. Millions of people moving through their own struggles, their own triumphs, their own journeys from falling down to standing up. Some of them would find their way on their own. Others would need help. And for those who needed help, there would be people like Nathan and Scarlett, ready to extend a hand and say the words that could change everything. I'll help you walk. The end. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, no matter how far you've fallen, you can always take one more step forward. What did you think of Scarlett and Nathan's journey? Let us know in the comments below.